Mm-hmm.
Hi, I'm Mimi, and this is Frank. We've been married for 58 years today. We got married at Holy Name Church in North Camden, New Jersey. And it was hot, and there were 6 priests at least on the altar. And Father Mealy said the Mass and married us. And here we are. 8 children, 23 grandchildren, and I forget how many. 1 great. And here we are. On a rainy day in Avalon, New Jersey. And Frank grew up in West Oak Lane. Tell your story.
I was just going to give a little background. We were sitting in Avalon, and the weather 58 years ago was about 100 degrees, beastly hot. Not very many places had air conditioning. Matter of fact, if you look at the church, the pictures of the church as we went in, the air conditioning was on. That is, the windows, the top of the windows were pulled down so that they had some kind of breeze. But anyhow, the difference is today in Millville, it is rainy and 64. It's the difference. It's unbelievable. Anyhow, here we are. 2013, 58 years later, 8 children, just when I think back, here we are in Avalon in our own home, with the kids coming and going on weekends and during the week. Can't all fit in here at one time, but they all good-naturedly share and have a great time. The grandchildren particularly have a wonderful time. Now, getting back to the original question, how did we meet?
We met on a blind date in September of 1950. Seal Kelly and Bob Mano introduced us, and we went to Sunset Ballroom in Almanesson, New Jersey, and went dancing. That's how we met. Dad had just graduated from St. Joe's, and I was a junior at Chesterfield. And he worked for William S. Merrill for 2 years, had a car, and took my friends into the Academy of Music. They just reminded us of that, to the concerts that were there.
Student concerts. Now I picked Mom up at Chestnut Hill. There would be 5 in the car, I guess 5 or 6. We'd drive down Germantown Avenue into Center City, park, go into the Academy, go to the student concert, get back, drive back up to Chestnut Hill, get everybody back into the confines of the convent, college convent, so that we didn't break any rules. And it was always a pleasant evening. And anyhow, Mom and I dated through from 1950 until we married in 1955. I worked for 2 years for William S. Merrill of Cincinnati, Ohio, a pharmaceutical company, and they were very good, just great people to work for. It was a nice job. I worked there for 2 years till I saved up enough money to carry me through medical school. The money saved lasted about a year, and then I was on my own. We fortunately, my father had died in 1946, right before I started St. Joe's, and my mother got by on the GI Bill and on the government. If you were on the GI Bill, would give you something called a subsistence allowance, which was $70-some a month. So what happened, I would get my check and give my mother $50, and she had Social Security for my father. That took care of the house pretty much. And I kept $30 a month for myself, which was $1 a day. That $1 a day covered transportation to St. Joe's, which actually I got to rarely having to take the E-bus. Most of the time going up to Washington Lane, thumbing, and I would wind up over at the through Lincoln Drive. At the end of Lincoln Drive, I would be dropped off, and I would get out and catch another hitch out City Line Avenue to St. Joe's. It was almost invariably that you would get picked up without any difficulty at all. In those days, a lot of the veterans that come back were all in college, and it was just a nice time. Everybody helped each other, and so anyhow, I didn't have to use my $1 a day for transportation most of the time. So I went out to St. Joe's, and I think I told him this before, but anyhow, in order to save money, I would buy a loaf. It was an equivalent of a loaf, a 2-pound loaf of Velveeta cheese and a loaf of bread. And so on Sundays or Monday morning, I would sit down, slice up the Velveeta, take the bread, and make 2 Velveeta cheese sandwiches. And that pretty much took care of me, and it was the whole lunches for the week was about $2. I think the Velveeta cheese was less than $2. The loaf of bread was about 20 cents. So I wound up with my lunches for the week costing about $2. So anyhow, St. Joe's was a great place. We were all philosophy majors. Whether you liked it or not, the core curriculum consisted of philosophy. And I had as many credits in philosophy and religion as I had in science when we got out of St. Joe's. And I was a pre-med major, so anyhow, it was very stimulating. We had great teachers. A lot of Jesuits were still teaching. We had some wonderful professors. We had some not so wonderful professors because the faculty had been decimated during the war, but they gradually replaced the faculty, and so we had a wonderful 4 years. I can't tell you, mine was the best 4 years of my life, which she took umbrage to, but as far as learning, having no responsibility, having no worries about finances, except how to get along on $30 a month, it was just a wonderful time. That $30, by the way, paid transportation, lunch, and a carton of cigarettes, which lasted me a month. I smoked a little over a pack a day, and so probably a carton and a half of cigarettes. And thank God I gave up smoking April of my senior year at St. Joe's because of heartburn, which had nothing to do with smoking, I don't think. But I gave up smoking, and there was a guy. I'm sure I'd be dead today if I continued to smoke. So anyhow, we met Mom, and July or August. Was it September? It was September. September 20th. 1950, and we started the date, and I met Mom and her family, and I knew the constellation of Mom and the McDermott family was really perfect for me. They were good-natured, welcoming, wonderful family, and I thoroughly enjoyed every minute I spent with them. Grandpa was probably one of the greatest men I ever met. Generous, good-natured, and just a great role model for me. And after Mom and I were dating for a couple of years, I always wanted to go to medical school. Never had enough money. So I started saving when I got a job, and I saved, I don't know how much it was, but I thought it was going to go a lot further than it did. Medical school tuition in those days was $800. So anyhow, I had saved up enough for the first year, and expenses going up and back and forth on the subway every day from West Oak Lane, and not being able to do any kind of work at all. I did work, but not a significant amount. So I wound up not having much money at all at the end of my first year. And after that, one year I got a scholarship. I think it might have been my junior year. My sophomore year, Mrs. Fox, Mrs. Charles Edwin Fox, very wealthy Jewish lady, although you'd never know it as far as her way she was dressed, and
She was wealthy.
a very, very wealthy lady. She was a Gimbel, and of the Gimbel department stores. Anyhow, she was, I worked for her for 2 summers, wonderful 2 summers in Maine. Went up in June, came back in late August, and I was her chauffeur. And just drove her around. She didn't drive. I drove her around the store and did odd jobs around the place. And she had I don't know how many acres it was. It was on Salmon Lake in central Maine, and it was magnificent. There were, talk about bird watching, there were birds all over the place. The eaves of the house were filled with spiders, about some of them almost like an inch across, with hairy, you may know they're gross. I didn't like spiders, but anyhow, there was everything in that that you would want as far as nature was concerned. It was just great. The ice, she had an ice box. There was no electricity. The light were kerosene lamps. She had a 50-gallon tank of kerosene, which she had filled in the spring, and we'd use during the summer to fill the lamps. And the lady she had working for her, and Mrs. Cole, would trim the lamps so that the wicks were proper length. And so we would have kerosene light, lamp light at night, no electricity. Refrigeration was from ice that she arranged to have people come in during the winter when the lake was frozen solid. They would go out on the lake and cut up big chunks of ice. They had a horse, and they would drag the ice into the garage, and also an ice house, which was filled with sawdust. So what they would do, they would put the ice in the ice house, and then cover it with sawdust, which was which protected it during the warm weather. It also protected the ice from deteriorating during the winter. And so if you needed ice, you would go out to the ice house, brush the sawdust away, chop a chunk of ice off, and take it in and put it in the refrigerator. Actually, they had a guy that came over and did that like twice a week as their ice man. Shopping, she had a car that I drove. She had the garage was like a barn almost that you would drive the car into. And there was a canoe. It was right on the lake with a dock. And a spectacular, wonderful location. And Camp Kennebec, which was a Jewish camp founded by her husband and a couple of his friends, who also founded an outfit for boys, and eventually for girls, but initially it was for boys. Big Brothers. Big Brothers was founded by Charles Edward Fox and his friends. And they, anyhow, that gets me to where I was going when I talked about my second year at medical school. Mrs. Fox arranged for me to borrow $400, which was half my tuition, interest-free. I paid it back when I got out. I paid it back within a couple of years. And so the second year was taken care of. Third year, and also Sister Paracleta, who was the administrator at the hospital, I was introduced to her by Grandpa, and she wanted somebody to work in the lab one weekend a month. So I worked in the lab one weekend a month. I got $100, which was fantastic. And that was really a godsend. So between the $100, the money I'd saved, and working for Mrs. Fox during the summer, I was able to manage. And third year, I got a scholarship. And fourth year, I married a wealthy woman who paid my tuition, and we bought a car. So we were really in the lap of luxury. We were in great shape. But anyhow, that was pretty much the story of our early romance, which was, and I thank God Mom was what you might describe a cheap date. She never really insisted on anything special. She was unspoiled. And despite my great attempts, she remains unspoiled.